Okay guys, this particular part of the bush hog right here is called a stump jumper. This is what the blades actually attach to under the bottom of the bush hog. A blade will go here and here. Now this is the upper side. The blades actually go on this side right here of the stump jumper, the smooth side. And if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it, I've taken a hand grinder and kind of brushed up the area where the old blades was at on here, because this thing evidently had been setting up for years without being used, because the blades were locked and frozen on it. They would not even move. I had to go and I had to get a neighbor to literally, like you see how this bolt comes through here like this? I had to go get a neighbor with a sledgehammer to actually a 10-pound sledgehammer to actually drive the top of this bolt, to drive it out of these blades, because whoever put it together had the wrong bolts and the wrong blades. What you want is when these, well, let me show you first. These blades, we went back and we resharpened the edges of these blades here on both of them. I took the hand grinder and I went back and resharpened them. Kind of all this bright part you see here. Bush hog blades are no different than any other blade. The blades underneath the bush hog have to be balanced, and unlike lawnmower blades and stuff like that, where you can put something in the center and cut a little off each side of the blade till you get it balanced, the bush hog blades actually hook to each side of this stump jumper. So the question is asked, how do you balance them? Well, what we do to balance them is I weighed each one of these blades. The rule of thumb is they can't be more than 2 ounces difference between this blade and this blade, or you'll get a vibration in the bush hog which will beat the bearings out in the bottom of your gearbox and cause a vibration in your tractor. So I have ground and ground. I don't know if this is the one. Yes, this is the one on this side here. I had to take the grinder. I had to take like 3 ounces off of this blade. And I done it by smoothing out the bottom of this blade. I done it by beveling a little bit more of this part of the blade right here. Of course, I ground this off. I came up here and I rounded the corners on it. I done little things like that. And plus I ground around this. We'll get this real smooth, and where it was sitting on the bush hog all froze up. I done these kind of things to balance these blades. Now, these bolts here that's in these blades, let me see if I can get this one to roll over here. These bolts have to turn freely inside this. They can't be locked up in there anyway. They have to rotate freely, like you see the head of that bolt rotating, so that this blade can sling freely underneath this bush hog. Now these bolts, if you'll notice on them, they have this ear pressed out on them right here. This ear over here in this stump jumper, now I don't know if I can get this down where you can see it or not. Move around here a little bit. These are wore pretty bad, but there's a groove right here in the side of this stump jumper. When this bolt comes through from the bottom like this, that ear on that bolt, turn it over this way, maybe you get a better view. Now, this is not the way it goes, but I'm just trying to show you. This slotted piece right here must fit in that slot right down there, like that right there. But it does it from the bottom side. It slides, and what that does is that locks this bolt where it won't rotate, so you can tighten the nut down on it and not have to have something to hold the other end of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the blades on it, and then we'll get back with you and show you what the stump jumper with the blades on it looks like. Guys, another thing I want to add here is these nuts. I got locking nuts to go on top of these, because when I tighten these down right here, I want this whole top of this bolt to be covered up with that nut and not stick through very far, because what happens is a lot of times you pick these bolts like this and they have a thin nut. I don't know if I still have one of mine. I don't think I still have one of the old ones over here anywhere, but they have a thin nut on top of them here, and it doesn't cover the threads up. And when you get ready to take this off, to take your blades off, then the top of this is all boogered up and rusted up and everything. So I got a deep, thick nut that was a lock nut, so that when I screw it down and get it good and tight, I don't have to worry about it coming loose on me. So I wanted to mention that to you. When you go to look for the bolts and the nuts, try to get the big lock nuts that's real thick to go on these. Okay guys, this is what it's going to look like when you get one of them on. The nut, the washer, And when you come underneath it and look here, this is the bolt. The blade has to be able to rotate freely underneath here. You see the blade can rotate freely on top of the bolt that's there. That way it can sling out underneath the bush hog when you do the cutting. So I want to give you a little bit of a look at the way it is supposed to look. And yes, once again, if you look out, it's raining. It's always raining. It's like it never stops. It just rains, rains, rains. And you can see it. It's just raining cats and dogs out here right now. The wind's getting up, so we are probably going to have to shut the doors here and hold off for just a little while. Okay guys, now we have both nuts on. They're very tight. We've got this one and this one run down. So we are ready to put the stump jumper back on the bottom of the bush hog. Now remember, this part right here, we're going to clean that up real good, and we've cleaned it off good and smooth, because that's going to go against the bottom of the gearbox over here. The bottom of that is going to go over this right here and set right down on that. So we're going, and this is tapered too, might I add. This is a tapered shaft, so we're going to, it can only go so far down on the bush hog shaft. So we're going to get it over there and get it stuck down on there, and we'll show you what it looks like once we get it on. Okay guys, now that we have the stump jumper on the bottom of the bush hog here, one thing that I like to do is take a sledgehammer and just tap it a couple of times around here to make sure that we're seated good on that tapered spline before we put our nuts and washers on there. And just in case there's a little trash or something got in the splines, it kind of helps to make sure that it's seated good. So I'm not going to do it on camera because it'll ring your ears real bad, so I'm going to just kind of do it afterwards, and then I'm going to put the nut on, and we're going to tighten this thing down where we can get this baby back running. Okay guys, while we was in town picking up parts for the bush hog, this here is called a castle nut. The castle nut that was on here was about 1.5 inches high. Well, the parts houses in town did not have a nut that high. They could have ordered me one, but it would have taken a week to have gotten here, and we needed to put this bush hog back together. So a mechanic that was there recommended that I take 2 of the 5/8 castle nuts and put one on top of the other one and tighten them down and lock them, and he said if you'll pin it, it'll actually do better than a single nut will. So we took his advice and we bought 2 of the automotive, these are nuts like holds the front axles on vehicles. So we bought 2 of these and put them on there. And another thing you want to make sure you have plenty of on a homestead is cotter keys. You know, you always want to keep a box of cotter keys on a homestead, because you never know when you might need a cotter key, especially with equipment and stuff. So we're going to go through these cotter keys here, and we're going to try to see if we can find one. Probably looks like this might be one we need. We may have to have a smaller one, I'm not sure. We'll just look at that. A good tight fit, went right in there. That's what I'm talking about right there. It went right in. Looks like it's going to work. Let me get something here a little bit better to work with. Y'all have to excuse me. There we go. We got it in there. Now we're just going to take and see if we can't spread these apart. Having to do this by myself and film, guys, so just bear with me just a minute. These big cotter keys are there we go. Got that thing bent around. Now we're going. Sorry about the noise, but there we have it, guys. We have our bush hog back together. Got our blades working on the bottom of it. They're all sharpened. All working good, free. Everything looks good. We're going to take the tractor now. We're going to flip this thing back over And the next thing, we got to build a drive shaft. The drive shaft that was on it was no good. Luckily I had an old drive shaft here I was able to rebuild, and we're going to have to see if we've got to cut it to length. But that'll be our next move on refurbishing this old bush hog for Annie. Okay guys, we have successfully turned the bush hog back over. Now, we've got to go take this off the back of the tractor so that we can come back and we can back up and see if we can get hooked up to this bush hog. This is our boom pole. We use it occasionally to pick things up with. So we're going to run over now to the equipment where we keep our equipment parked. We're going to take this off and come back and see if we can hook the bush hog up. Okay guys, we've successfully got this off the back of the tractor now. We've got it sitting on our cultipacker here. We're going to take our quick hitch pins here. We'll put it in our little toolbox here. You know, this is as near nothing on a tractor as I've ever seen. We have got to try to locate us a toolbox. This thing is only like 3 inches wide and maybe 12 inches long. You can't really keep anything in it, so we're going to try to locate a toolbox of some kind from somewhere to see if we can't replace this thing with. It's got 2 bolts right on the bottom of it here that holds it on. We're going to try to see if we can't come up with one that's it's maybe this wide out. Well, we want it as wide as a fender. We don't want it sticking out any wider than a fender, so it could probably be 6 inches wide and 12 or 15 inches long, or maybe even 2 feet long. I mean, it could be any of those. But on a tractor, you just need, you need more than this right here. And this is just a little flimsy plastic. So we're going to try to look around and see if we can locate us a larger toolbox to go on our tractor here so we can keep more stuff in it. Okay, we're headed back to the shop. We're going to see if we can hook up to the bush hog. Okay guys, we figured if we was going to go through all the work of fixing this bush hog, we're going to make sure it's hooked to the tractor right. We're going to make this a full tutorial video. We now have the tractor up on a slab. One of the first things you want to do is you want to lay a 4-foot level across your bush hog, and if you'll look, you'll see it's not level. So we've got to make the bush hog level in order to be able to level in the woods, and the way you do that is on the controls on the back of the tractor here on the third arms. You have this one side here that's adjustable. So what we're going to do is break out the crescent wrench, and we're going to turn these nuts and break this thing loose. And we're going to turn this and adjust it so that we can lift this side of the bush hog up. So we're going to get the wrenches out, and here we go, talking about the little toolbox again. Okay, we're going to take a crescent wrench. We're going to come here to this, turn it around the right way. We're going to break the nut loose, which we've got it loose now. We're going to back it up out of the way. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take this crescent wrench and we're going to turn this until we make that bubble get in the middle. We're almost there. Okay, looks like we've got the bubble right in the middle on the level. So we can come back now and we can take this nut right here, run it back down, and to ensure this thing stays that way, these are two nuts, and what you do is you lock one against the other one. And we're going to do that by tightening that down. Alright, now that takes care of it side to side. I personally like to bush hog with the front of my bush hog being a little bit higher than the back end is when the wheel is on the ground. Now I'm going to have to undo my chain here and get it out of the way. Let me get this chain out of the way and I'll get back with it. Okay, as you can see, my wheel is not quite on the concrete yet, and the front of the bush hog is touching. So that is not what we want. So we're going to be going to the top link, which is right here. We're going to take the wrench and we're going to break this one loose. Now that we have it loose, we're going to run it back. Okay. Now what we've got to do is we've got to lengthen this. Okay, the back wheel just touched the ground. So I'm going to keep turning this. Now I'm going to have to crank the tractor up to in order to get this adjustment like I want it. So there's going to be some noise. We're just going to have to talk over it. Now we're going to be lifting the bush hog up a little bit at a time. Okay, now what I'm looking for is for the front of the bush hog to be a little bit higher than the back. Okay, right there, the wheel is just touching the pavement, and let's look at our level and see what we've got here. It's time to focus. Let's see here. Get my level where I can get it where I can see it. Okay, so what we have is the front is about half a bubble higher than the back when the wheel touches. I would like it to be just a little bit more than that, so I'm going to move this down where I can let go of it. Right there is what we got. I'm going to try to get about 3/4 of a bubble, so that's what I want. Okay, that is what I'm after, about 3/4 of a bubble or a little bit more, and to me that gives me a perfect adjustment on my bush hog. So now we're off to work on the drive shaft, because the drive shaft was no good that was with it. So we're going to be taking an old one I've got and redoing it, and may have to even cut it to length to put it on here. So we're going to go do that next.